How are you?
I'm pretty good. How are you doing?
I'm pretty good. Pretty good. Just like day 9,428 inside, right?
Yeah.
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 So, hello. Oh my God. I love it. Like you are a Twitter icon, a Twitter female icon. I love
Oh
it.
yeah.
Um, so
Take
I
it.
found you, I found you on Twitter, like it must have, I mean, maybe a year
Years ago.
ago.
I feel like it must have been years ago.
But I wanted to speak with you because, as a female comic, the stress of body image in the
Mm.
comedy world is something that, like, I want to hear from you what that's been like because you are pretty vocal about it online.
Yeah, I mean, I get the stress of body image
In
in
general.
general. Yeah.
Right.
I just think in comedy it's a little more, it's less acknowledged
Mm,
and it's less discussed, probably because comedy is seen as like not the traditional Hollywood sort of structure. We're not like this. We're the alternative ones. We're like the oddballs and the outcasts. So like I think there's this idea in the world of comedy that, you know, we don't fall victim to those superficial types of things, but it's just if you're talented, then you'll succeed. And that's it, you know? I feel like that's kind of the state of mind of a lot of people in comedy, but it's not true. I mean, obviously, talent is number one and it will always be number one. But, you know, I've been in comedy almost 10 years.
right.
I've seen and observed the people, you know, you just see things. You're like, okay, this person who's really like hot right now and getting a lot of buzz is like literally really hot. And I think there's something to that more than just obviously they're very funny.
Right.
There's a reason they're getting that extra boost and that buzz in
Right.
an industry run by a lot of straight guys still, straight white
Right.
men mostly, you know. And I love that things are changing and I love that a lot of these studio heads and a lot of these people, like meetings that I would go on like years ago would just be like a bunch of white dudes, and now I'm like going to meetings and it's like, okay, there's a lady here or there's a person of
Right.
color here. Yeah, like it is changing. It's just not changing fast enough for these things to be like changed overnight,
Right.
you know. And it sucks too to like talk about it and be that person who's kind of like complaining about it, quote unquote, because you really feel like, you know, you're just kind of made to feel like you're being a little bitch, basically. Like
Well,
you're just complaining, maybe you're just not as talented, you know, or you know, stuff like that.
totally. Well, that's a trope that I think goes along with like fat-bodied women of like the complainers, the world is so hard for us, right? Like, and it's like the last thing that we want to do is fall into that idea and to into that.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I absolutely understand what you're saying, and I think that that is so indicative of the type of way that fat-bodied women have to be in the world, where we're constantly having to monitor ourselves
Mm-hmm.
for everybody else's comfort, right?
100%. Yeah, yeah. Always. And then just like kind of just manipulating yourself. Like I've gaslit myself so many times where I'm like, am I just overreacting? Am I looking too much into this? Am I like thinking this is something that it's not? Because I mean, I would literally like go to parties and guys would just come, like I'd be in a group. And I remember this so clearly because I have like a lot of quote stereotypical quote unquote conventionally like hot friends.
Yeah.
And so whenever I would go to a party with them, it would literally be like me standing like next to two of them and these like two dudes, and like they're not even looking at me. They're not even acknowledging that I'm a person
Mm.
just because they don't want to fuck me, basically. And they're just talking to her. They're talking to her. I'll like pipe in and they'll just kind of like be like, uh-huh, yeah, uh-huh. And then just like keep talking. And I'm like, am I, this isn't just, are you noticing this? Like, just kind of this like level of being ignored that
Mm.
it's so subtle and it's so like, unless it's happening to you,
Yeah.
other people don't get it and they don't see it and they don't realize how subtle, and even though it's so subtle, has such a huge effect on
Absolutely.
you, on your career, on how you're seen, on like how you your trajectory. Like it has this effect overall on how your life goes, you know?
Exactly. That's one of the hardest parts of it is like it's that silent killer where it really is. It's so subtle and it's so nuanced, and I think that like fat-bodied women also have so much experience with it, so we really know how to even make it quieter, because it's embarrassing and it's shameful. So
Oh.
it's like when we notice it's happening, we don't want anyone else to notice that it's happening, because it's like, seriously, it's happening.
Yeah, yeah, completely.
And tell me about like this stuff I've seen that you're doing this. Tell me about this like strip event, right?
Yes, yeah.
I want to know about that. I want to know how you have like gotten to the point where you're like, fuck it, I'm putting my body on the internet, and you
Mhm.
all have to look at it as uncomfortable as you are with my body, because I don't look like a runway model. Like, what has that been like for you?
Oh man. It's interesting. I don't know what it was that made me, because I remember like in my early 20s, I was very self-conscious
Yeah.
and I didn't have any sort of confidence about my body.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually think getting into comedy and getting into stand-up helped me in that, but it's a double-edged, like it helped me kind of speak up for myself more and it helped me gain more confidence, but like as a performer.
Right, right. But then opened up a whole new door and set of problems.
Totally. Yeah, it did. And while it helped me, it was also holding me back in a way because I was like, Alison on stage is not Alison in real life. And those are two different people and they don't have to connect. Alison on stage is probably more the real Alison, but Alison behind the scenes is still going to be very shy and embarrassed and like try and hide her stomach and like try not to look fat in any way because, you know, that's just not how I should look. By the time I started getting, and it, you know, body positivity kind of got more in the mainstream. And I mean, I really can't pinpoint what it was that made me double down on being fat and like not try and lose weight or like, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I guess in my teenage years, my mom would always try to get me to lose weight and I just wouldn't.
Have you ever thought about like why? I mean, here's the other part of it is like your body honestly probably couldn't lose weight the way that,
Yeah,
right?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. And like I've had that experience too, where I was told by my peers, by my parents, lose weight, lose weight, lose weight. But it's like, no, 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 no. My body can't get my body. This is where my body's natural state is. Like this is my
Yeah.
body type. I can't lose that weight.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's fucked up because I have PCOS
As
and
do I.
oh, there you go. Hello. So you probably know what I'm talking about when every doctor I'd ever go to, always, it would just be like, okay, here's some birth control and lose weight.
Mm-hmm.
That would be every doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Like the only way you can possibly maybe cure this is to lose weight.
Mm-hmm.
And that got in my mom's head.
Mm-hmm.
And so instead of it being about my looks, instead of it being about, you know, being hot, quote unquote, I'm sorry, I hate that I'm saying that so much, but you know what I mean?
Oh, of course, conventionally beautiful, conventionally
Yeah,
attractive. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. Instead of it being about that, it became about health.
Yes.
And that's what my mom would fixate on. That's what all the dialogue now was like, but it's for your PCOS, it's for your health. And that really fucked me up too.
Right, because you know that that's not entirely true.
Oh, now I know. When I
Right.
was younger, I believed it. I was like, okay, well, I mean, you're telling me that it's because of my health, like it could
Right.
cure my PCOS. So, okay, like I'll try to lose weight. And
Right.
I would try many times and it never worked.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, the most I lost was maybe like 10 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And then I gained it right back. And then I would just gain more weight. Like nothing ever worked. And the way it was always positioned was that like I was doing something wrong. Like it was always me, my fault. I wasn't following the rules right. I wasn't doing this diet right. I wasn't exercising right. Like nothing I was doing was the right way. So try again.
Yep.
Try again.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how it was. And finally, when I left, I went to college. I gave up. I was like, whatever, I'm just fat. Like, that's what it is. It's weird because you acknowledge it and you accept it, but you also are still ashamed of it and you still have things about it that you don't like. As much as I would accept, like, this is just who I am, this is my body, I would still work really hard to hide it. And I would still just kind of assume that men wouldn't be into me because I date men, that men wouldn't be into me because of my body. And I would like, you know, I became very passive in dating. I was like, okay, I'm going to let men come to me because I don't think any of these men are attracted to me and I don't want to embarrass myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just going to wait for a guy to want to hook up with me
Mm-hmm.
if he approaches me. Like it did affect me in ways that while I thought in my head that I was accepting it, I really wasn't.
Mhm.
And then stand-up comedy came. Sorry, this is like a lot of talking.
No, this is exactly what I want to hear, because it's just, I'm telling you, like, it couldn't be more similar to my experience, and it
Yeah.
couldn't be more similar to other fat bodied women. Like, that is the biggest takeaway, is that, like, we all have the exact same story, and
Yeah.
it makes me a little bit happy knowing that, that, like, not
Yeah.
I feel for your experience. I am sorry that you went through that, but at the same time, like, thank God this was not just something that was in my head and something that
Oh,
I
yeah.
lived through by myself.
Yeah. And that's been the biggest lesson too, is like knowing, because when I was in college and in my early 20s, I didn't have any fat friends.
No,
Most of my
neither.
friends
I
didn't.
still don't. Right.
Yeah. So I couldn't really relate to anybody
Of
about it. There
course.
was nobody who, other than the acquaintance here and there, when it came to like close friends, they were all thin. They just didn't experience life the way that I did. And it just, like, for a while, that's how I talk about like gaslighting myself, where I was like, well, it's all in my head, or like,
Yeah.
I'm just not going to say anything because they don't understand what I'm talking about. So I'm just going to keep it bottled in.
Yeah.
And that's how it was for like most of my early 20s. And even when I started stand up, it was still kind of like that. And I don't know, something just came over me, like maybe 2 years into stand up, something like that, where I was like, I need to talk more about my sexuality, and I need to be more. I need to be more the thing that I pretend I am on stage, is basically the talk that I had with myself, where I'm
Right.
like, I present myself as this really confident, proud to be like sexual and fat person, but I'm not like this in real life. And I want to be more like that person I am on stage,
Mm-hmm.
and not the other way around. So, and then it helped, of course, that people were talking about body positivity more, fat acceptance. It was finally stuff that was like showing up on my social media, and I
Right.
was like, oh, like, okay, finally, like, I felt like I could connect and like relate with people.
Right. That there was a community there that exists.
Totally, yeah.
Mhm.
So that helped a lot. I guess there's just like a combination of things where I was like, my birth control, like my PCOS, it's not changing my weight, nothing's happening.
Mhm.
I'm accepting that this is my weight, and I'm gonna like finally stop holding back, and I'm gonna be like the fat slut that I want to be. Because I would always want to wear things that I saw like my friends wear, that I was like, I want
Sure.
to wear that, why can't I wear that? And I would never let myself like show my stomach. I would never wear anything tight. I would never, I would try to look cute, but in a very safe way, like
Yeah.
baby doll dresses, like everything had to be hidden, and I had to be very curated and careful
Oh,
about
yeah.
what I was wearing. Yeah. And then I finally was just like, fuck it. And I like bought tight pants for the first time, and like
Right.
showed my stomach, and would just let things kind of hang out when they weren't hanging out before. And it was a very slow process. It wasn't like overnight. Like, I remember my very first like slutty pic. It was like, I look at it now and I'm like, oh my God, I thought that was slutty. Like, literally, like, it was just like a shirt and like shorts, and you could just see like my thighs. And I was like, wow, I really thought that was like, but I mean, it was, because
It
it's what started.
was. And but
Yeah.
that is also, that illustrates so well, like, how conservative you felt that you had to be before that. Like, if shorts and a tank top feel
Yeah.
scandalous, that's how hidden you felt your body was before that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Completely. Because like I would maybe wear shorts, but like only around close friends, like
Of
never like,
course. Yeah.
like
Get it.
shorts was a big deal
Yeah.
to finally wear shorts, like
Oh,
out
yeah.
in the wild, or like going to a bar. Like,
Oh, yeah.
that was like monumental.
Yeah.
But those are the little steps that are required. It's got to start somewhere.
Mhm.
And then just that drive to force yourself and push yourself to kind of like power through feeling awkward, feeling embarrassed, feeling like everyone's looking at you. I mean, that's another great realization too, is just learning that like no one cares. Once that really clicked in my head, I was like, oh, no one gives a shit. No one is looking or thinking about me the way that I am thinking about me.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was just small baby steps,
Yeah.
and I started, and then I just kept upping it every like,
bit.
you know,
Yep.
a little bit more and more, to the point where now I'm like, all right, here's me in like a string bikini, tits out, stomach's out, like it feels so second nature now, but it took years. It wasn't like, okay, suddenly I'm really confident and really love my body and fuck you. Like,
Right.
it took a lot of forcing myself to like not think about how men would view me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that male gaze is strong, and I was really I was super boy crazy. I
Mm-hmm.
like wanted boys to like me, and I think like a lot of people don't like talking about that. They don't want to admit that because it's very childish and it's very like, you know, but I'll admit it, I was boy crazy. Like, all I wanted was a boyfriend. Like, I was like, I need a guy to like me. Why don't guys like me? Like, that was my whole early 20s. And the day that I started like kind of exposing my fatness more was also the day that I had to be like, you know, telling myself like, okay, some guys that you like are not going to like this,
Mm-hmm.
but you have to just fucking deal with that because this is who you are, and power through. And just over time, I just cared less and less and less what a guy would think about how I looked. And it became about how I felt about how I looked and about what I liked and what I wanted. And I just took that male gaze away and started focusing more on my own gaze. And now it's like, all right, here's what I think is hot about me. And if a dude happens to think I'm hot too, cool, let's talk. But it's just I'm putting myself first versus putting myself second.
Yeah, that's so important, because I think also as girls, like when we're young, we're taught that so much validation comes through male validation, and that's just like a very, it's wrong. It's sad that that's what young women are taught, and also what men are taught, right? Like that this is how
Totally.
you validate girls, is seeking out beautiful women, and this is how you're going to be validated in your masculinity as well. And all of it is
Mm-hmm.
just so problematic for mental health. On like, that's what it is. It's just we are creating this really toxic, unhealthy environment for children and for adults and media to live in.
Yeah. Yeah. Completely.
It's very apparent that the way that you look can help you succeed in the world, no matter what industry you're in, right? Like whether it's comedy, whether it's the food business industry, whether it's media, whether it's whatever it is, the way that you look matters. Like we can't deny that. We cannot deny that. So growing up for you, how long, I mean, how aware of your body have you been, and at what age did you start being aware of your body?
I remember it happening really young.
Mm-hmm.
I remember it happening like elementary school, like
Yeah.
fourth, fifth grade.
Yeah.
I remember I was very obsessed with my
Oh
arms.
yeah.
Like like this part, like right above my elbow, I remember just being very like self-conscious about it.
Mm-hmm. I don't know.
And
That's
I would never wear shirts that would
hard.
expose my upper arm. I just did not do that for most of my like early childhood.
Yeah.
I remember like fourth, fifth grade, like I even like would start having like sort of the early signs of like an eating disorder.
Mm.
I would eat and then I would like force myself to jump rope a bunch to like try to immediately burn off what I just ate.
Yeah.
And I like wouldn't eat for a few days. I would have like a snack here and there, but I would try like really hard like not to eat anything because I just wanted to be skinny. And I mean, the kicker is at that age I was.
Right. You like look back and you're like, am I kidding myself?
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. Like if that Alison saw Alison now, she would be horrified. Would be like, "Oh my God, what did you do?" But back then, I was like 10 years old. I was such a kid. I was literally like not even in middle school yet. And you know, I think what happened was I had like really bad constipation because I wasn't eating,
Mhm.
and I would just complain about stomach aches all the time, to the point where my dad was like, "Okay, we got to take you to the doctor." And they did an x-ray and they were like, "Oh yeah, you're like full of poop. Like you just haven't pooped because you don't eat." So I wasn't getting any fiber in my diet or anything, but it never fully went away because my mom was always big on like making sure everything was like diet food, like low sugar, low carb. And she would always kind of be like, "Okay, watch your carb intake." So it was always like rhetoric that was in my mind, where I would always like be conscious of like, am I eating too many carbs right now? things like that. But luckily it didn't get to the point of like a full-blown eating disorder. Yeah, just being raised to look at food as good and bad, and not really seeing that there's like intersection between the
Yeah,
two.
absolutely.
My weight fluctuated. I started gaining weight, and that's when I found out I had PCOS. And then that's when I just started on this path of like gaining weight every year. And as much as people around me were like, you should lose weight, like it just wouldn't happen.
Oh yeah, absolutely, right? It's like you're told your whole life you have to do this thing, but like we were saying at the beginning of our conversation, like it's just not possible for my body type. Like that's not where my body is supposed to be normal at.
And I wish someone told me that when I was like 20. When I
Oh,
was 20.
yeah. Yeah.
You know?
I mean, doctors don't tell you that. Your parents don't tell you that. Your teachers don't tell you that. So, of course, I mean, magazines certainly don't tell you that. The
Right.
internet certainly doesn't tell you that. So, of course, that's what you're going to think.
Yeah. If I just knew, like, this is just what your body is, just accept it.
Right.
Instead of everything being positioned as like, well, you should just work harder.
Right.
You should go to the gym every day. You should be at the gym 3 hours a day. Why aren't you at the gym because I'm a human and I have a life to live, and I don't know how people do this, but to me, this is like not right.
Right.
This is something I must do in order to prove to you that I am trying to lose weight, that I hate being fat, that this isn't how I want it to be. Like I have to prove to people. And that's what I was like really struggling with my late teens, early 20s. Like that was me.
And I think thin women too deal with this idea of like, you need to fix yourself, you need to change, your neck or your nose or your eyes, wear this makeup, wear these clothes, all of that. We're constantly being told that we're wrong in the world and that we need to be fixed, when in reality, it's like the world is wrong and we are fine just the way that we are. Just again, reiterating this idea of like, we all experience this, right? Like it's not just such a unique and such an individual and experience. Like it very much is a shared experience. And like the more we can talk about it and the more visibility we give it and the more we kind of pull back that curtain and unhide the shame that we've been living under, the more we can heal individually, but also collectively. And I think that that's important.
Yeah, totally. And I just want to reiterate, like, I'm not an activist. I'm not like,
right.
These are just my personal life experiences, but I would highly recommend like reading texts and for people listening, like definitely like go to a legit, like someone who really knows their shit.
Totally. I mean, I feel the same way, right? Like I'm no expert. All I'm speaking of is like my personal experience, and that's where I can draw from. But, there's so much out in the world, but it's like these types of conversations can like kind of be that like gateway for people to then go explore more on their own, I hope. Because I think, like social media is so important because it's a distribution platform for digestible content to exist for people to access it, right? So yeah, absolutely. That's a very good point.
I'm still learning too, and I'm gonna be keep on learning for many years to come. And absolutely. I definitely appreciate talking about it and expressing my feelings, and that's all I do. Like, I've written, because like I'll look at stuff that I've written about my body years ago and be like, oh God, why did I write that? Like so uninformed and so, like using terms that I shouldn't have used and things like that. But it's like, that's part of the process too, is like making mistakes and like thinking that you know everything, but you actually don't. And then like learning and acknowledging. And so just to say that it's like a never ending, you'll always be on this journey, and, just try to enjoy it as much as you can.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. You too.
Oh yeah, totally.
I hope my babbling was okay. I feel like I babbled a lot, but
no, that's what talking is, right? Yeah, thank you so much. I'm excited to like keep hearing everything you have to say online. And
thank you.
I'll see you online.
Yeah. See you on the internet.
See you on the internet. Oh man. Allison, thank you so much. So good to
Thank
meet you.
you.
I'll talk to you
You
later.
too.
Good. Okay, yay. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.